Taven, the half-god that was first introduced in Mortal Kombat Armageddon, is getting a redesign today. Taven had a pretty interesting role in MK's past, so let's see if I can give him a look worthy of a comeback. Okay, so I've been asked by a few of you to do a redesign of Taven from Mortal Kombat. Oh boy, poor Taven. That man has to have one of the most unfortunate, saddest, and unnecessary stories in Mortal Kombat lore. This could just be to me, but for his mother to foresee Armageddon and rather than just, try to create a feasible plot to prevent that from happening, her and Argus sent Taven and his brother Dagon on an insane journey to fight Blaze, hoping that would prevent Armageddon by either killing the fighters or taking away their powers. And of course you would do all of this because why wouldn't you put the fate of the world in the hands of a game? Being honest, that's what the Mortal Kombat tournament is in the first place. But for Taven, he and his brother were put to sleep before their quests. His brother was accidentally awakened early, which corrupted his mind. He then killed their mother and father before forming the Red Dragon clan to hunt him down and then lead him to Blaze. And by he, I still mean Dagon. I heard myself. Taven learns of all of this, finishes the quest by killing his brother, and then defeats Blaze. All for nothing. Nothing came out of this. Taven was not the winner of Armageddon. As we all know, Shao Kahn was. I'll probably dive deeper into that fiasco later, but it's all really a shame because Taven wasn't a bad character at all. I know most MK fans, especially when it comes to the conquest modes of the 3D era, prefer Shujinko over him, but I don't. I love that Taven is just as lost and confused as a character about the story as you are, the player. I love how much common sense he uses as a character, which Shujinko almost never did in Mortal Kombat Deception.
So by defeating you, I could be killing them all.
They are unimportant. Whichever outcome, you will be saving the realms. But you must not let anyone else combat me.
Then allow me to win, and we'll put an end to this.
Even when things in the story of Mortal Kombat Armageddon didn't line up, he questioned it at the same time that you would. I thought he was an amazing protagonist. But I had my gripes too. My complaints about Taven, number one, was how bulky he looked. And my other really big complaint was his actual moveset, which in theory should have been cool, but the way it was applied, it just really stiff looking animations. It looked as stiff as his design was. Being honest, Taven's attacks look much cooler playing around in conquest mode than it does when you're in an actual fight with him. So the idea of making a design that doesn't look quite as stiff, or at least is a nice update for Mortal Kombat 1, is interesting to me. Honestly, Taven being an Outworld or Edenian half-god in the new game would be interesting, but let's see what I can come up with here. Alright, so to start off with, I began with the base pose that I sketched out for Taven, then started working on his actual gear. I started with his gauntlets and accessories first. I wanted to have an idea of what that looked like so I knew what changes I wanted to make in his outfit. I didn't want him looking drastically different, just an update from his previous looks. I also refused to give him his armored look at all because once again it just looked way too bulky, I can't stand it. But I added an extra gold plate to his gloves or gauntlets rather, just to cover a little bit more of his fists. I also brought back the net beads, but I just increased the length of the top, which you'll probably see later on when I begin coloring. I remembered a gold-plated knee look in one of his many concept designs. I studied a lot of those concept arts when I was a kid. I remember a few of them, Taven's being one. I gave him that same knee pad design because I always thought it was cool. I came close to giving him a different hairstyle, but I thought against it. It's been a while since we've seen Taven in Mortal Kombat. He needs to retain the same feel, at least to refresh him with the fans, before you start doing drastic changes with his hair and stuff like that. Most of the rest of his detail would be added at the coloring stage. So after I sketched out his look, I cleaned up his line art before I begin said coloring. Before I continue, I would like to remind you to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Make sure to hit the notification bell, it'd be greatly appreciated. Now back to Taven and his coloring, which, being honest, was extremely easy. Coloring Taven wasn't a problem because his color palette is not extreme at all. A lot of golds and blacks. As I said earlier, I changed the shirt too, so not as much of his chest was showing. It was entirely black. That ended up sort of lowering that a little bit to go back to where like the little necklace design or whatever that is around his neck and chest. I added a red streak in his pants just to break up the palette some. I also changed the shades of black so it wasn't just two uniform colors and that's it. Also somehow, and I don't know how I did this too, I ended up having to add the dragon tattoo later on in the design. I don't know how I almost forgot to do that, but whatever. It's there and it's a focal point of Taven's original design, so I had to make sure I got it back in there. But anyways, because the coloring was really simple, I started to shade him in. I always enjoy shading metallic or shiny textures and objects on characters for whatever reason. Because he had a lot of gold in his design, I had a lot to play with. Around this point in the design was also when I remembered to add said dragon tattoo that I told you I forgot earlier. But overall, his shading was simple enough. Like I said, this isn't really a complicated design. I didn't really need to reinvent the wheel just to do a nice little update to Taven. Something that looked familiar but different. I love the challenges of designs like that where they don't need to be radically different, but they do need to be updated to have a change for a different game. At least that's how my brain was interpreting this. But anyways, after this, I started his highlights, which were also simple to do. I went over Taven with a light base before I went back and started adding whites for specular highlights. After the shading, the highlights just become sort of self-explanatory for me. And then after getting those final details in, I was finished. And I had a brand new Taven design for Mortal Kombat. For a look to reintroduce him to MK, I don't think this design is too much of an extreme departure from his original look. But I could be wrong. What do you think? How you feel about the design, and how do you feel about Taven potentially coming back to Mortal Kombat? He's one of those characters I have my doubts about, but considering his dragons appeared in the Chaos Pack, at least the story portion, who knows, maybe we see Taven and Dagon again. But as always, like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't once again, and you all have a good one, and I'm out.